This is Dan Dix here, reporting for Press for Truth, coming at you here today with a comprehensive breakdown of yesterday's Montreal shooting that the mainstream media is already rushing to label, spin, and bury. But the full picture, from the shooter's own words, tells a much more complicated tale. On June 22nd, 2026, in Montreal's Côte-des-Neiges neighborhood, right near the headquarters of Aylo, the parent company of Pornhub, a 25-year-old man from Alberta named Seth Scott Hatfield opened fire. A Montreal police officer was killed, a civilian was also killed, and Hatfield himself was killed in the ensuing shootout. Mainstream outlets are framing this as incel terrorism, or a right-wing extremist attack driven by hatred of women. But I've gone through the reports. I've gone through the location details. And most importantly, the 104-page manifesto that Hatfield left behind. And folks, this is not your average angry virgin shoots up a school type of narrative. This is something far more layered, far more philosophical, and far more disturbing in its analysis of modern society. Hatfield drove across the country specifically to this location. He opened fire from a hotel window with a long gun, an SKS rifle, and broken windows were reported at the building that's housing Aylo's head office. The manifesto explicitly lists the headquarters of international pornography companies and those who actively promote pornography to the public among his valid targets. But let's not stop at the headlines. Let's actually read what this guy wrote. I've just finished going through the entire document, and it's a mind-boggling piece of work. Hatfield doesn't just rant. He attempts a sweeping historical, economic, and biological analysis of how Western society shifted from a predominantly monogamous system to what he calls a hypergamy state. He argues that for thousands of years, agricultural civilizations enforced monogamy to give the average common male a stake in society, access to intimacy, family, and purpose. This, he claims, stabilized civilizations and allowed for progress. Then came high capitalism, as he calls it. Women gained economic independence through the workforce and the welfare state. Feminism was weaponized, in his view, to pull women into corporate exploitation. Dating apps and the internet gave women constant access to the top tier of men globally. Porn and hypersexualized culture normalized casual encounters and made average men disposable. He points the finger squarely at the porn industry as a major accelerator of this reality, turning what should be intimate human connection into a commodified, screen-based substitute that leaves ordinary men isolated and broken while profiting the elite. He specifically calls out pornography companies and those promoting porn as major targets because he viewed porn as one of the most vilest contributors to male suffering and broader cultural decay. And he's not wrong. Porn has absolutely contributed to many problems for men and for society. Excessive use often hijacks the dopamine system in ways that are similar to drug addictions or gambling addictions. This can lead to desensitization, where normal, intimate encounters no longer provide the same stimulation, pushing users towards more extreme content. It creates wildly unrealistic expectations about bodies, performance, consent dynamics, and emotional connections. Real relationships suffer, especially when one or both partners compare flesh and blood intimacy to polished, edited fantasy. This contributes to dissatisfaction, performance anxiety, and higher rates of relational strain and breakdowns. Heavy porn consumption correlates with increased feelings of loneliness, social withdrawal, depression, and lowered self-esteem for many men. Instead of motivating a real-world effort to build connections and improve themselves, it offers an easy, on-demand escape that often deepens isolation. So, as much as this shooter was dead wrong and evil to resort to violence, targeting people and opening fire is never justified. Having said that, he was definitely onto something very real when it comes to pornography. And this isn't coming from a mainstream conservative or a radical leftist. Hatfield positioned himself as neither left or right. He condemns both sides. He says the right props up figureheads who promise tradition but deliver more corporate power and degeneracy. He says the left pushes feminism and open borders that further erodes monogamy and family formations, all while both sides ultimately serve the same elite class that benefits from a divided, automized, hyper-sexualized population. He correctly identifies that both political wings are controlled by a single bourgeois elite. But then he proposes his solution, a complete overthrow and new order of total state control over private property, finance, travel, and information to force a return to monogamy and stability. He envisions robots taking over many traditional female jobs in the workforce. This, he argues, would remove women's economic independence, eliminate the incentives for hypergamy, and force a return to stable, monogamous relations with average men. And he goes even further. He advocates moving towards a world where man and machine merge, transhumanism, as a part of this new engineered society. He calls for the abolition of private property, extreme internet censorship, and he rails against mass immigration, cultural degeneracy, leftists, and liberals, trans ideology, and Christianity. So it's a messy, contradictory mix in ways that don't neatly fit the right-wing extremist template that the mainstream media initially pushed. Now, let me be crystal clear once again. Violence against innocent people, like police officers doing their jobs, is never justified. Period. Shooting up a neighborhood because you're angry at the state of the world solves nothing and only creates more victims. But here's the part that the mainstream media won't touch. Hatfield is articulating real, measurable crises that are destroying Western societies. Male loneliness and suicide rates at record highs, collapsing birth rates, the porn addiction epidemic, and the breakdown of the family unit. These are not fringe observations. These trends are documented in government statistics across Canada, the US, and Europe. And here's the part that should surprise absolutely no one. Canada has some of the strictest gun control laws in the developed world. Licensing, registration, bans on certain firearms, you name it. Yet, a determined individual still managed to get his hands on a gun and carry out this attack? Imagine my shock. Criminals and those hell-bent on violence don't obey gun laws. They acquire firearms through illegal means, like black markets, smuggling, or theft. Whatever it takes. Law-abiding citizens, meanwhile, face more restrictions and are left more vulnerable. So this incident is yet another example that gun control primarily disarms the good guys while failing to stop the bad ones. But the bigger takeaway here is just how quickly the media and the officials tried to force complex events into their tidy little ideological boxes. But the manifesto reveals a radicalized individual with a hybrid ideology, blending incel grievances, anti-capitalist communism, anti-porn moralism, and calls for censorship and revolutionary violence. It doesn't fit neatly on the left-right spectrum that the mainstream media would prefer. So yes, we should condemn the violence without hesitation. But at the same time, we can acknowledge real societal problems, like the documented harms of widespread pornography consumption, without excusing murder or rushing to censor discussion. So The solution isn't more censorship, more gun control theater, or more narrative spinning. It's honest conversations about what's actually harming people, especially young men, stronger families and communities, personal responsibility, and rejecting violence as a path to change. That's the truth that the mainstream media is not going to give you straight. So, this Montreal shooting is a messy, tragic story with many layers that the mainstream media wants to simplify into their favorite boogeyman. But the manifesto shows us a very disturbed individual, blending incel rage with anti-capitalist revolutionary fantasies, private property abolition talk, and calls for heavy censorship, while correctly identifying porn as a societal poison for men. So we condemn the violence completely. Targeting innocent police or bystanders is never justified. But we also have to be honest about the real problems that he highlighted, even if his solution was evil and insane. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. There's so many things that I could have gotten into in this video as well, like whether or not that female cop was responsible for accidentally shooting that citizen. But I wanted to focus on what came directly from the horse's mouth. So if you want to read it for yourself, I will include a link in the description. And if you appreciate my efforts to bring you this information, please consider making a contribution at pressfortruth.ca/donate. I'll leave a link for that in the description as well. Please share this video far and wide and hit that like button and leave a comment. It really does help with the algorithms that are designed to stop this information from being seen. So that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Stay vigilant, keep fighting the good fight, and stay tuned. I'm going to have more video reports coming soon, God willing. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.